good matchup between the Beastmen and the Dark Elves here. Road to Vol's Anvil is a pretty fun map, and you're gonna be enjoying a fast and furious battle here. Two very quick factions. Beastmen just having good speed across the board. Immediately right up on the objectives pretty much, so I'm going to be jumping out here pretty early to grab those and get myself a points lead. Gore herds here with the Ungor Spears, Zangors, as well as 2 Ungor Raiders to provide fire support, and Taurox as my lord with a Bray Shaman of Wild with the Traderkin. Just a really solid spell, does a lot of damage, and provides really good value. Especially over the course of a game, and just really good burst as well. For my opponent, Malekith hiding in the trees for the moment on the Velociraptor, Gaze of Malice, Soul Stealer, Supreme Spell Shield, gonna mitigate a little bit of the effect of Traderkin. So good call-in and good choices for him. 5 Black Arc Corsair Handbows with 5 Dread Spears. Pretty meaty elf wall here. Pretty difficult to deal with as Beastmen. The shields mitigate a lot of the missile fire. However, the Ungor Raiders do outrange the Black Arc Corsairs, which is a really good situation for me. Gonna be able to poke these guys down pretty efficiently, especially with having the local advantage on the high ground here. It's worth noting that my opponent really doesn't have any idea where the majority of my force is. The only things he can see right now are the Zangors and Taurox. So he's trying to jump out here and cap all 3 objectives up. He can see me capping these 2 in the middle here, trying to play as cagily as possible, but also wanting to push the tempo because the infantry quality is very skewed in favor of the Dark Elves here, so I'm going to have to play the first engagement very cagily. My microphone has been driving me crazy all day, but we're gonna ignore it and just push through here. I really just want to focus on the gameplay. Taurox coming in. He's going to just dodge between the formation of the Dread Spears here and jump onto the Black Arc Corsairs, supporting my infantry as they try to engage across the board, mitigating a lot of damage as they are running and unable to fire as accurately as they could. First couple of volleys from the Ungor Raiders, poking in on the Dread Spears, doing pretty good damage. Nothing to sneeze at there. Malekith on the low ground, and the huge formation of Dark Elf infantry really taking advantage of the lack of quality I have here. I'm just going to cede it to them for now while I focus on the high ground. Taurox retreats a little bit as the Coldwood Knights come out, didn't want to overextend into the back line, and decided to just charge down the Dread Spears here, getting ripped apart by the Zangors and Archer Fire. Moving my archers forward now to shoot the other Dread Spear, and maybe get some good poke on the Coldwood Knights. Retreating Taurox through my Zangors now. Don't want them to get charged and take too much damage. They are unfortunately stuck up on these Zangors though, so I'm going to turn around and just get him to charge in here. This is a pretty perfect engagement. He can fight big stuff, or big AP, anti-large stuff, if he's got some good buffering, which I'm taking advantage of now, and he's gotten a lot of damage in on these guys already. Taking out models left and right, pretty good value on them just to start this game off nice and early. Unsummon on the Sorceresses, who have gotten both their casts off and have given Malekith the power boost on Soul Stealer that he is looking for. Retreating with Taurox yet again, and getting good supporting fire from the Ungors on these poor Corsairs. They're just taking tons of arrows in the back with a giant angry bull coming in right on top of them, doing a lot of damage on the charge, and missile fire, overlapping on top of that. You can see their leadership tanking, down to 7 already, not looking too good for them. Good cast of Gaze of Malice onto my Zangors, but does hit the Dread Spears, and does enough damage that they start routing, and they're going to get folded up, routing into my Zangors. The most recent patch has really made it so that once units break, they really do get torn to pieces, which is great for fast factions, Whereas previously, you just kind of wet noodled your way into the back line and tried to chase stuff off the map. Now you can actually kill them, since all the models can get their attacks off as long as they're in base contact. Whereas before, only 35% of a given unit could get their swipes in. Taurox a bit isolated, fighting against these Ulthuan Knights, and a Soul Stealer coming in here. Very good cast. Gonna hit my entire army practically. I mean, everything on the high ground pretty much. Overextending with these guys. Gonna pull them out. Trying to get some shots on Malekith and help the Bray Shaman of Wild, who unfortunately has pretty much been caught. Getting beat up pretty bad. The reason for that, though, is a huge engagement down here on the low ground. Finally securing a numbers advantage, and gonna try and take this objective from my opponent, bringing in the Butchers of Kalkengard and all of the Ungor spears and gore herds that I can possibly get out onto the field, tying up all of these pretty expensive units. Butchers engaging against handbows and dark riders here, getting huge attacks in, really tearing through these guys. You'll see it. It's beautiful. So this is a pretty good engagement for them. There's really nothing that can compromise them. They would be getting shot by the handbows. Unfortunately, they're all tied up by the cheapo spearmen, which is exactly what I wanted. And terrified and now routing are the handbows and dark riders, giving me free reign to start popping through the entire formation now, which is what I'll be doing shortly. Cynagors with axes coming out to support this flank, where the Ungor spears and gore herds are getting beat up pretty badly by these handbows and the regular Corsair variant. So throwing axes supporting there a little bit, and a Manticore coming out onto the field. Pretty good choice. Does cause terror, and for a low leadership faction like Beastmen, that can be a little scary. But Taurox is going to come help his boys out. Now that the high ground is secure, minus these Zangors, I'm going to be bringing some Pestigors, and the Zangors are going to rally while the Raiders decide where they're going to go. This position's pretty secure for me now, so I felt comfortable bringing Taurox down just to get rid of this Manticore, which dove into the middle of quite a few of my infantry units, and is a bit trapped up now, especially with the Rampage going down. Taurox, a little lost in the sauce down here in this pit fight, but gonna be getting onto the Manticore shortly now. I was busy trying to micro my Cynagors away, who got charged down by these Dark Riders, with Murderous Prowess going in, giving them some pretty substantial buffs and doing a lot of damage, man. Trying to save these guys is a bit of a tricky proposition, so I'm gonna be pulling them back and bringing the Razor Gore Herd out. This is a great unit. These Hogs are vicious, man. You're going to see what they can do in just a moment here. But swinging out onto the side, the Minotaurs, they jumped onto this Black Art Corsair and Handbow unit and just ripped them apart. Absolutely obscene value on these guys. 154 kills and 1100 value in a very short amount of time, honestly. So couldn't ask for more. And they just have free reign over the battlefield now. This is a really good position for me to be in. I've got infantry pouring onto the field, crushing his force pretty thoroughly at this point. The values are pretty close, however. It is certainly not by any means over. I need to play this very warily, just because Malekith is a very powerful lord. Taurox is pretty beat up. I've lost my caster now, which is pretty bad. Not having access to magic can be a very tricky position to be in domination mode. You want to try and keep them alive if possible, but that just wasn't in the cards. I was busy focusing on so many other micro interactions. Tattered Gore Herds and the like. Gonna be posturing up, trying to keep my opponent off of the objectives. I am securing this bottom objective now with some the Tattered Centaurs and Ungor Herds hanging out here. Huge charges coming in from the Razor Gores, getting on these Cold One Knights. Very unfortunate engagement for these Cold Ones. You know, this is a pretty dedicated anti-large unit counter, so my opponent probably thinking that it's free real estate, right? But unfortunately for him, not so much. The AP and charge bonus that these guys have make them insane against units like this if they can get a good charge off, which is exactly what happens. Rampaging around, tearing apart what remains of these Dread Spears, and the Coldwood Knights in literally about 10 seconds ripped to pieces by 30 to 50 feral hogs in the neighborhood. And plenty of juice left in the tank now. Maneuvering over, gore herds being thrown forward just to keep my opponent off the point and keep the triple cap going as long as possible. I have finally resecured the lead. Very favorable position to be in now with a triple cap, battlefield control, and just a superior mobility army at this point. Dark Elves are very quick, don't get me wrong, but there's really nobody faster than Beastmen, except for Slaanesh, so very, 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 very fortuitous turn of events for me. Less fortuitous is the Cynagors being taken offline by these Dark Riders, tearing into them pretty well. Gonna keep them in combat though and just take the damage because the Razor Gores, these stopped rampaging. These ones still healthy, not rampaging at all yet. Gonna get a really good charge and sandwich onto the Dark Riders. Again, ripping them to pieces in no time flat. Doing as much work as I could ask for. Malekith is getting a little raucous in the middle here, doing a really good job, up to 2200 value, keeping my opponent in the fight here. Manticore bothering my Ungor Raiders, so grab some Cynagors, get a good charge off, and it starts routing immediately. Rotate immediately into the Corsairs here, just to help out these Ungor Spears. And these guys are routing immediately, and as you can see, man, once you start routing in the new patch, it's pretty much over. Your units just get torn apart so quickly, which has really boosted the power of Khorne and Beastmen and factions that previously could not fully exploit the speed advantage of their units in relation to enemies routing. So, very favorable now, though, for me. Good Traderkin coming in here. Upgraded variant with the caster coming back out onto the field, just chilling, doing good work, and doing a lot of damage there, as you can see on Malekith. But a really good Soul Stealer comes in. He's been really on point with those casts, doing a lot of damage to the Razor Gores and the Centaurs, who have found a very lonely Coldwood Knight unit. Yet again, losing a very expensive unit to what I was very surprised to find out is a pretty insanely cost-effective unit in this latest patch. So these guys dead and gone yet again. My opponent, in the meantime, though, doing a good job of getting rid of the Ungor Spear Herd, who were defending this objective, getting himself back on the board with some points, but here it comes. A downhill charge from the Hogs. Gonna get right in here on these Dread Spears, doing a ton of damage, absolutely knocking the entire unit into the Shadow Realm and throwing them all the way back into their brethren, and giving me an opportunity to stop up my opponent from separating enough to avoid what's coming. You know it's happening. There's no way I could resist. I had to cast an upgraded Traderkin on these guys. Hits the whole formation, tearing into the Dark Riders, Dread Spears, and Malekith, taking a ton of damage here. And giving, with the Dark Riders trying to get on the Centaurs here, the non-throwing weapon variant able to get on and compromise these guys, shutting them down and crushing them off the field in record time there. Ungor Raiders do get charged by the Scourge Runners, which is unfortunate. And my opponent on the low ground, what was looking pretty favorable for him, has quickly turned into a very bad position to be in. He does respond by bringing out some Corsairs. He has been picking apart this Zangor, unbeknownst to me, for a little bit of time here. So, gonna take the Butchers and Taurox and try and support these guys, holding with another Zangor that I've brought out and some reinforcements coming in just to fully secure this objective. He really doesn't have any answers right now to the Butchers, who 13 models left, tons of room on the healing cap now. Very happy to be rampaging yet again. Really nowhere for these guys to go, and it's going to be curtains for them. On the low ground, some throwing axe support, getting in on Malekith there, doing good work, and his leadership is not going to hold. Going to start routing here, and with my opponent's army looking as tattered as it is, and another rear charge from the Razor Gores. They rallied after being hit by all of those counter units. Dread Spears and some Dark Riders did a lot of damage to them. They did rally and got a good rear charge on this Dread Spear unit, and my opponent's going to call the game there. Very well played by him. He kept it really close, especially considering the unfortunate high ground engagement early in the match. He did a good job of scrapping back in there. I think if he had just played a little tighter with his units, kept them a bit more focused on the two low ground objectives, it would have been a much more favorable spot to fight from in general, as well as not giving me any freebies, basically. If you're going to play that very aggressive, like, attempted triple cap style, you can't really do it against a faction that can respond with as much speed as the Beastmen can. I mean, Hogs, Harpies, Centaurs, Minos, and the like are just way too quick and able to respond too effectively. And my opponent's... if my opponent's answers had been able to stay on the field a little bit more effectively, I think it might have been a different game. But as it stood, those Razor Gores, man, getting huge, easy, cheap engagements on the Cold One Knights, turning them into mincemeat, man. No pork chops tonight, unfortunately, for the Dark Elves, and gonna be feasting on some lizard flesh for these hoggies, paying for themselves 2 times over. MVPs with the Butchers of Kalkengard. And Taurox did pretty good for himself as well. 1,300 values, not too bad. He was doing alright. Got bullied by Malekith a little bit, but the rest of the army was able to do the work they needed to keep me in the game. And you can see just across the board, very effective, cost-effective trades for me. So, gonna call it there. GG's. Peace, guys.